Arkansas cable providers are connecting our state to the world. Through our state-of-the-art broadband networks, educators, healthcare providers, emergency responders, law enforcement personnel, and consumers have access to the information superhighway like never before, many times at greatly reduced costs. That's our commitment to making Arkansas a leader in the digital age. Arkansas cable providers are indeed connecting our state to the world, and we're just getting started.
You're watching Capitol View, Sunday morning talk focused on the political scene in Arkansas.
And welcome back to Capitol View. All throughout 2014, we're going to introduce to you as many candidates for the most talked about races as we can, provide you with an opportunity to get to know some people you're likely to see a lot of over the next several months. We've already started that journey in the 2nd Congressional District, the race to succeed Congressman Tim Griffin, and we continue that this morning with Democrat Pat Hayes. Mr. Hayes, thank you for joining us this morning.
As always, David, good to be here.
I read somewhere that you were the mayor of North Little Rock for 79 years. Is that?
Actually, 54, no, 24 years.
That's
24
right.
years. 6 terms and a great run. We had a lot of fun over there. We like to think we left some good footprints and looking forward to the future.
89 through the beginning of 13 for the mayorship. And I remember one of the things you told me, you look forward to spending more time with, the wife, the grandkids. And here you are, you're jumping into a race for Congress. Tell me why. Well,
you mentioned the grandkids. When I left, first of all, when I left City Hall, I didn't stop caring about the things that we cared about. How people live, what makes their lives better, job production. I mean, I could go on and on about, the 24 years we had, and certainly the confidence level of people reelecting me 5 times. And we didn't really know what we were going to do when we left. We just knew that it was time to put a period behind City Hall after 24 years. But that caring just kept getting stronger as I started looking to the future. I didn't know whether I wanted to go and try to become an appointee somewhere, or I really didn't think running for office was in my near future. You mentioned my grandchildren, and I never knew I would have as much fun with those 3 youngsters, and things kept going on in Washington, and I guess the more that I looked at it, the less I liked it. The more I thought about the functionality of City Hall, the dysfunctionality of Washington. 2 of my 3 grandkids, it was really the shutdown, I guess. It was a crescendo of what
in October.
Yeah, in October. Harper, my grandson, was 4. He turned 5 in October. Isabella, my middle granddaughter, turned 9 in October. Savannah is 11. And I couldn't look at those 3 youngsters and think, what are they going to have to live through if we can't get our act together and try to do some things and make tough decisions that, will give them the kind of life that we tried to work for in North Little Rock for 24 years. And I think it's a lot better. In fact, I know it's a lot better. So the training that we did at City Hall, the fact that, I can't tell you, David, right now, of the 8 city council members that I worked with, who's a Democrat and who's a Republican. When we went to, go to mayor's meetings, I can't tell you, who's Republican mayor or Democratic mayor. Potholes are potholes, crime is crime, and in fact, there's no such thing at City Halls as Republican crime and Democratic garbage. I mean, crime is crime and garbage is garbage, and problems are to be solved. And that's what we worked on at City Hall. And we made some progress. We did a lot of good things. We produced a lot of jobs. I mean, I'm going to respond to your questions, but, I could talk about Caterpillar, I could talk about Maybelline.
Well, and that's what I was going to kind of ask is, do you look at this race as, do you run as, look what I did as mayor, or do you run more in the sense of, well, first off, do you think you'll have, an opponent in the primary? Right now, you're the only announced Democrat. Let's start there.
We, March the 3rd is the filing deadline. We've been out working hard. We've been raising money. We've been talking to people. We've been going out into the counties, the 7 counties that comprise the 2nd Congressional District. We've been getting some really good response from local officials, of course, people that I had a chance to work with during the 24 years I was at City Hall, from county officials to municipal officials. I mean, to me, that's where lives are affected, is at the local level. And for 24 years, I looked people straight in the eye when I did something that they wanted me to do differently, or when I did something right. And so, you know, we feel good about where we are. We don't think we're going to have an opponent, but obviously until March 3rd, that's always possible.
Okay, well, let's look at it just maybe in the general sense. Do you run as, I've been mayor for 24 years, these are the accomplishments that I did in North Little Rock, or do you run more a campaign that says this is how I'm different from Congressman Griffin, even though he's not in the race, the Republican Party is?
Well, you run from both perspectives. You know, the first perspective obviously is what we've been able to do, and kind of the history that we were able to put together, working with people, solving problems, making sure things that happen. Don't worry about partisanship, worry about a problem that needs to be solved to make people's lives better. So we're certainly running really with a springboard of what we think is a great way to move into a congressional seat. But the second thing, you know, part of that, you know, you never want to look back except in the terms of the experience that you had. You really want to look forward. And what I'd like to do is to go up to Washington. I mean, I don't think anybody's going to disagree. It's a terrible place in terms of the partisanship, in terms of people worrying about the next election rather than the country. You know, Democrat, Republican. You know, I go back to City Hall, and we didn't care much, in fact, anything about that. We cared more about the people that we were serving and trying to do things that make their lives better.
Sure. Some of your, well, at least one of your opponents isn't quite as cynical about the process in Washington. But when you go back to October, you said that was really the root of getting into the race. Well, the root of that shutdown we know was related around funding for the Affordable Care Act. Gets us to your thoughts on the Affordable Care Act. A, were you supportive of its passage in 2010, and where do you stand on it now?
The first thing I said was that I would have voted against the Affordable Care Act if I had been in Washington. Obviously, the rollout has been terrible. It's been frustrating. It's been a disaster. You know, it seems to maybe have smoothed out a little bit. You know, of course, there are articles in the paper about how more Americans, more Arkansans are being covered under Medicaid. There are problems with the Affordable Care Act, and they're going to continue to be problems. But
Fixable?
Fixable, at least, but it's got to be bipartisan. I mean, you can't do it, you know, from one side of the aisle versus the other side of the aisle. To me, you know, somebody asked me what was the first thing I'd do when I got to Washington, and I think they were thinking about, you know, this piece of legislation or that. And the first thing I said is I'd find a Republican congressman and make a friend, you know, because we have got to learn how to work together. I mean, you talked about my grandkids, you know, Republicans have grandkids, independents have grandkids. You know, they care about the future of the country just like I do. And I'm not going up there, you know, to be a rubber stamp for anybody except for those three kids who I think the future is in jeopardy for, at least much more so than the jeopardy I had. This country always has been the premise that we were going to have a better life for our kids and grandkids. And I think that's in question now. The debt, you know, that we're leaving them up there, $17 trillion. You know, that has to be dealt with. The budget, finally we have a budget that was adopted, looks like it's going to be adopted, bipartisan. And I would have voted for that budget. I've heard that
Congressman Griffin did?
Well, Congressman Griffin did, and I applaud him for that. I also heard that two of my three opponents on the Republican side would have voted against the bipartisan budget deal.
Got about a minute, so let me ask you just a couple more. As a Democrat, last couple elections in 10 and 12, Democrats struggled outside of Pulaski County. You're clearly a Pulaski County guy. How do you do better outside of that?
Well, no, I disagree with you. I mean, obviously, you know, 24 years at City Hall and working, you know, with my neighbors on the south side of the river, but there's an organization called MetroPlan. MetroPlan covers multi-county areas, Saline County. It doesn't go up to Conway County, but it's Saline, it's Conway or Faulkner County, you know, Pulaski. So we work as a unit, Republican, Democrat, you know, and we've done a lot of things. In fact, the Big Dam Bridge was a big part of what we've done at MetroPlan. We have one.
But does that penetrate to voters? I mean, I think a lot of us maybe in the media know what MetroPlan does, but I mean, do you think that alone is going to translate?
Well, what it translates in is that we work together. You know, I mean, whether it be Republican, Democrat on MetroPlan, we work together for the betterment of the Central Arkansas area. So yes, that translates into recognizing that you disregard partisanship, you disregard, you know, a party in terms of what's important to people, and on local government, you know, it's what makes things happen and it's what makes lives better that we concentrate on. And so we go out into the counties and we work together. We've got a rule in MetroPlan that if you call for a weighted vote, you know, Little Rock being the big kid on the block, you know, you can, you know, vote vis-a-vis that weighted vote. North Little Rock County, but we have never in the history of MetroPlan called for that weighted vote because we wanted to do things by consensus and we want to get things done for all the people that we represent.
Fair enough. All right. Well, a lot of work still to do in the 2nd Congressional District. You'll come back and talk to us later this morning.
Absolutely.
Right? Okay, very good. Former Mayor Pat Hayes joining us this morning. We'll be back in just a moment with more Capitol View on KRK.